Welcome to Knocking to 10, the podcast for go-to-market leaders scaling from 0 to 10 million and beyond. I'm John DiLoretto, founder of Knock 2. Each week, I sit down with founders, operators, and go-to-market leaders to pull back the curtain on what's fueled their success and the hard-earned lessons they've picked up along the way. New episodes drop weekly. Subscribe to follow along.
Welcome to Knocking to 10, the podcast for go-to-market leaders growing SaaS from 0 to 10 million and beyond. I'm your host, John DiLoretto, founder of Knock 2, and I talk to people building pipeline in the trenches. Today, we have Alex Grace, a four-time VP of sales who has been at many startups from 0, ranging all the way up to 50 million plus in ARR. Alex is a bit of a legend in the startup community. Not only is he a sales leader, he also leads a consultancy business and is a mentor in the Pavilion Sales Network. Alex, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, and we are definitely not friends. We've never met before, so don't even know each other, actually. You know, don't hire them too early is the headline, and understand what you're getting. Like we talked about it at Bergamos a little bit, like knowing what you need, like the adage of like, I'm just going to go hire the top rep from my competitor and they're going to instantly bring all this new business. It's like, no, you have to like think deeper about like, all right, if they're a top rep of your competitor, they probably haven't hunted in years. They also have a company behind them that has, you know, market recognition, has, you know, processes, collateral, all of the things that you don't have. And so that you're hiring a farmer, not a hunter, who needs like all this support and stuff. So they're not, you know, and then what also, once they go, you're going to ask them to then convince people that they had sold their product and had got to trust them. And then all of a sudden now they're in a new company. They're like, oh, just kidding. That product, shit, this new one's the best. Like it very low success rate, doesn't work, it's not just they take their book of business and bring it to you. And then once they run through that book of business, they got nothing because they haven't actually gone out and hunted in years because they're just farming off of referrals from their book of business. And so like understanding fit, like when you're a founder looking for a head of sales or a CRO, or I mean, God, I hope not a CRO, you know, really a head of sales. It's like, you need to find somebody that fits the problem you have, not the problem you think you have or you hope you'll have in the future. Like you need somebody who is likely a very good salesperson and has, you know, some management chops, but not like a manager who can be a good salesperson. Yeah. Because the problems that you have are they need to extract a sales process from you, the founder, and then they need to figure out, okay, go and like close business, and through that, then build a process and hire a team to that. Not somebody that comes in day one looking for a process that needs fixing, and then how to scale that process. You're not there yet. Like you're still at the throw shit against the wall and see what sticks phase. And so I think that like, you know, that's my advice to founders is like get real granular on what you actually need, what you want this person to do, what you're expecting them to do. Are you expecting them to close business? Is that if they, you know, built a perfect HubSpot and tech, you know, sales tech stack and a perfect like strategy, but didn't sell anything, are you happier than if they sold a bunch of stuff but didn't build that process? And if the answer is the latter, then you need a salesperson who, you know, has like, you know, early signs of the ability to manage, or like a, you know, strategic thinking skill set versus the other way around.
Strong player with a potential to be a good manager or coach.
Yeah, literally like hire the, you know, the guy that's, you know, still early in his career, but you know, has the football mind, the Andrew Luck, like, you know, has a football mind and would make a good coach one day. You know, and I think it's hard because you're bored, you know, and I think that this is the other thing that's probably shouldn't be a soundbite, and make sure that I never get investment again. But like, you know, VCs have no fucking clue what they're doing. Like the days of like, they just recognize what they are, which is dumb money. And they give you money, but that they give all of their other startups money, and they've seen what some startups have been able to do that works. But like, with the exception of some, and there are some, and if I feel like I need to like save my reputation, I can name them. But like, there are a few that hire operators
Yep.
that have done it, and those are great. You know, the GTM funds of the world, the like primaries that have like operators in residence that like know what they're doing. Great. But like, you know, my board isn't going to know, is it the right time to hire a head of sales or not, or what, like, because they don't operate my business. They don't know what unique struggles I have. But they're going to be the first ones to say that was a mistake. You shouldn't have hired that person. Like, you know, and it sets you back because now you've invested all this time, you've transitioned all of this like brain share to this person. And you know, starting over, you're basically at ground zero again.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, tell me how you really feel.
Yeah, that's hot take number one. What next?
How long do you think that actually takes on average? You drop in a head of sales at a Series A startup. How much time do you think you need to give that person to extract the process, close business, figure out what works, and then build a process before hiring a team? Is that like a 3-month project? Is it a 6-month?
I'm going to
1
tell you
month?
it's a lot longer than the average tenure of a head of sales. But you know, listen, I think look at it like onboarding a rep. Like, this is your first rep. So good companies like with sales enablement functions and training schools can onboard reps in 30 to 60 days.
Yep.
You're not going to be better than that. And so you've never onboarded somebody, so it should take, call it 90, you know, so like 3 to 4 months to onboard somebody to get them productive, understand the product, because you also don't have like materials. You don't know what's working. You did the, hey, I'm a CEO of a business, would love to pick your brain, which is like, doesn't scale as a as a sales process. I mean, it works early on, and then you're like, I don't want to pick your brain, I'm going to sell you. Like, we all see through that. But you know, so I think like, call it 4-ish months, 5 months to get somebody up and productive. And then, you know, they need some time to a year from there to like actually build pipeline. Because what are your, you know, like the math is there. You know what your sales cycles are. You know what your conversion rates are. You know what like your ramp it should be. And so you know yours is probably worse than that. So I think like the answer is like they need a year and a half to really figure it out. Good ones will do it faster. Don't get me wrong. Like there are, you'll have, but like that's what I wouldn't make a call. I mean, let me rephrase. There are going to be signs if they're not working out along that path, and you can make a call. But like this hasn't worked. Like you won't know. I mean, think of how long it took you to actually get revenue in your business or build the product, or like how much time were you given? And the answer is you should give that much time.
Yeah.
Because it's hard.
If it takes 18 months, what are some of the things that you should be looking for that would be a positive sign that this person is going in the right direction? So what are sort of the boxes to check over that period of time if you're telling somebody to be patient?
Yeah, like momentum. So are they building pipeline? Are they improving? Like are the deal cycle, like the sales cycle shortening? Are the contract values going up? Are the close rates going up? Like, are they getting better? You want to see, is this somebody that is seeing the problems in real time and adjusting and constantly iterating, not just doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Like, that they've been pivoting, that they're constantly, they've been like for me, like if I were a founder, are they collaborative? Are they like, do I have to like corner them to get the information out of them? Or, when I ask how things are going, are they just, everything's good? Like, no, it's not. Like, are they closing business? Are they getting traction? Is that business sticking around? Is it good fit business? Or are they just, calling every one of their relatives? Are they building their network and their name in the space? Like, are they identifying opportunity like that? All of those things are signs of if it's working. But again, it goes back to, did you hire the right person? So if I hired a head of sales or a VP of sales and I needed a salesperson, like, the signs early on are going to be like, there's no track, but you hired a strategy guy to do the work. And, they either haven't done that in a while, or it's not their kind of zone of genius. And so, it's not going to look right. And the opposite being true. Like if you hired somebody to build structure and process and strategy, and you hired a salesperson, like, yeah, your pipeline's going to look great, but it's going to be messy and all over the place.
But Alex, bring people up to speed real quick. How you went from kind of like earlier days to now being VP of revenue at Arta. Fill in some of the blanks for folks.
Yeah, I mean, I started my career, like, I mean, this is gonna make me sound old, which I am old, but not that old. Like, started my career in like the phone and a list sales job, real boiler room, environment. And so, with like urgency and one call closes and faxing in contracts and, so have a lot of old school sales in me. And grew real quickly, like realized while I was really good at sales, what I really enjoyed was kind of coaching and developing people to translate the skill set that I have to them, and then the strategy side of building out orgs. And so I think I quickly moved into management in that company. Ended up helping them expand internationally into Mexico City and Montreal. And then, from there kind of went into going into orgs that, had sales leaders in place or had, early success, but no structure and putting structure in place. Have done that at, various stages and sizes from, the 0 to 1, the 10 to 100, even did a brief stint at ZocDoc in the kind of 600 to $1 billion run. And so, I think that have learned a lot, have been in a bunch of different spaces too. So kind of have the track record to say that sales is sales, and that, we as sales leaders are, it's the same 5 problems that we see. They present themselves differently and the solutions are, nuanced a little bit, but I mean, we're really solving the same 5 problems. And so 5 or 6. But yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of in my trajectory. And, now I'm at Arta doing the 10 and beyond journey, coming in and putting some process in place, helping do more of the things that are going well and less of the things that aren't.
What do you think is your favorite stage thus far when you look back? What part have you enjoyed the most?
I mean, I think the early traction, you've had salespeople that are successful, but it's kind of cyclical and it ebbs and flows. And what you're looking to do is like, how can I scale this to be efficient? Yeah. And it used to be the pour gasoline on it stage. This was like when money was flowing like water. Yeah. That was fun. How do we hit our number? Well, we hire 100 salespeople. I think, based on my age and kind of the upbringing of a dad that worked for like a Fortune 5 business, like I've always had that but it should be profitable voice in the back of my head, which a lot of people don't have these days. And so I was never well, I'll hit my number if you can hire 100 reps. I was well, let's make sure that we have enough business for those reps and that the numbers work out, and build capacity models to, top down and bottom up modeling. I think it's all a math equation. There's, we can figure out, and, but I like that. I like the smart scaling, the, efficient scaling with efficiency, which is, I don't know, the buzzword of the day, but.
Okay, so before that, so you've been VP of sales now 4 or 5 times. Many of these businesses you got dropped into were a bit before that stage where they're ready for smart scaling. They're probably figuring it out, putting in methodologies and whatnot. I know you have quite a bit of experience with kind of laying the foundation. How do you go about picking a sales methodology? So if you were speaking to, say, a VP or new head of sales who's getting dropped in at a Series A, maybe they're doing a few million in revenue, what would your sort of advice be to that sales leader?
Yeah, I phrase it differently. I always say that like I would much rather make my own mess than clean up someone else's. And so I'm really good at making them. Um, Sales methodologies are interesting because like there are a million of them, and each of them kind of has their merits. I think that the answer is don't bring the one you've used in the past to the one you're most familiar with. Figure out which one works for the business, the sales cycle, and the customer like buyer journey that you have. The number of times I've seen people in like Series A businesses for like B2B 30-day sales cycles having like medic and medpick. I'm like, do you want to elongate your sales cycles? Like there isn't an economic buyer. Like you don't need 6 people in this sales call. Like
Yep.
Stop. And so I think that like it's how do you build a process tailored to, and if it's one of the sales methodologies, great. If it's not, make your own. And I think that like, there are some that I like more than others, but it really has to fit the business that you're in and not your business fits the sales methodology.
Okay, good advice. I frequently see where people are toting and very proud about bringing their methodology and implementing it from one place to the next. But often recognizing, as you were saying before, that where you found success in the past isn't necessarily going to translate to the future. Even if it's a similar business, the stage, maturity of the business, the customer base, et cetera, is all constantly evolving, and that the need to kind of refresh and recycle when starting at a new gig.
Yeah, you don't want to be a one-trick pony, and I think that like, it's if it works out, great, but like that's your biggest blind spot is if you're coming in and saying, I've used Medic, I'm a Medic expert, and so Medic's going to work here. Yeah. Like it doesn't always, like, and I think that there are versions. That's why there's so many that exist, because somebody will take, Medic to MedPick or MedPick to Spiced or like, Challenger sale or, all of these different, like there's so many different ones because everybody takes the bits and pieces that work for their business and use them, because what you don't want to do is add too much complexity. Like I always view it as like, I would rather start from scratch and add things as appropriate than try to like build a house and then go in each floor and try to reno it. Like just build from the ground up. So much easier.
Yeah. So you get dropped in, you are, taking the process out from the founder, you're working through kind of putting in a foundation. How do you go about evaluating the existing team in place, your tool set, and kind of building out your systems in your first, call it, 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, it's, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of the team, of the tools. I mean, like I did it here. Like, I think, what tools are we using? What ones overlap? What ones, do I like that or could be useful here? That we should evaluate. And then, what ones are we using? What ones aren't we using? Like, are there immediate opportunities for savings? Or do you just wait it out and at renewal time kind of weigh the benefits? But again, prescribe to, where are we struggling in the sales process? So it starts with taking a look at the sales process. Where are things hanging? Where are we losing? Where is there fault, like deals falling out of the pipe? Like, where are we good? Where are we not? Mm-hmm. The numbers won't lie. And then figuring out why for each one of those things. And that also helps you evaluate the people. Like sit on, as a sales leader, even if I were the CRO of Google, like still sit on sales calls. That's the best way to like hear what's happening, what's working, what's not. So sitting on sales calls, listening to the reps, working with them, seeing, are they coachable? Are they not? But understanding that like you're on their side and you have their back. But like also understanding that replacing is so much harder than working with those reps. So you have to kind of like have that, can I get them there? And is the work that it will take to get them there, does that like time have an ROI? Like, does it, if I do the work to get them there, what does that look like? And are they worth saving? How long will it take for me to find somebody else? Like, it's all weighing the cost versus the benefit.
Yeah.
But my default is always, unless there's a really glaring reason, to try to keep the team.
Yeah. What goes into that sort of framework for you when you're trying to evaluate the sort of cost benefit of maintaining existing team members, the time frame it takes to sort of evaluate versus going out and kind of, bringing on new team members right away? When you kind of have to make those hard decisions, how do you like evaluate when the right time is?
I think it comes down to like the human level. So like as your manager, I have a duty of care to you as the employee. And that duty of care is that I have to be willing to put in the work to either get you there or move on from you. Like if this isn't the spot for you, the worst thing that I can do is hold on to you for too long, thus preventing you from finding the next thing that's a better fit, because I haven't done a good job of building a bench, or because I'm afraid to move on from you, even though I know it's not going to work. So quickly, I have to figure out, can I get you there? And that's like a will, there's like the skill will matrix. Like, if your skills aren't there, do you have the will to get them there? Like, are you coachable? Do you take coaching? When I give you feedback, do you argue with me? Do you, disregard it, or do you actually action it? And like those are the things that I'm looking at, that'll determine whether, I think it's a fit. And then if I realize it's not, I owe it to you to be transparent and tell you, like, hey, listen, I don't think you're happy here. I'd love to make this transition a reasonable thing, like, give you time to find something else while I find somebody else. But like, having that, man to man or person to person conversation of like, this ain't gonna work. And then, being a resource for them. Because again, like the number of times that like I've seen CEOs say like, they're shit. Like, we hired this person and they're terrible. And I'm like, well, number one, you built the interview process. And you interviewed them. So either you're shit at recognizing talent, or what is more likely is that we were really bad at enabling them to be successful here. And so you have to like take ownership of your part of it. Like it's not them, it's probably us, to be fair. They either needed more support than we could give them, they needed more structure than we had, the time or the stage of the business wasn't a good fit, the sales process wasn't a good fit. We didn't do a good job identifying these problems coming in. But it's not like listen, even the biggest liars, like, it's not, you've been successful elsewhere, which is why we probably initially talked, and you'll be successful in the future. It's not you, it's just this wasn't a fit. And so like, how can I either make it a fit or help you move on? But like, I've, the number of people I've worked with or that have like, they're like, oh, they lied to us, they're dog shit. I'm like, no, they're not. Like, you are. It's like, I hear you, but own your part in it, which is, because we had an interview process where we were all like thumbs up on this person. And then somewhere between that and when it came time to, perform, they didn't. And that's probably on us.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let's jump to something maybe a little more fun than thinking about evaluating the team and tools when you get dropped in. So the other night, obviously, we were chatting a bit about your unique approach of what you're doing, what is working right now at Arda. Maybe not without sharing your full secret sauce. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how you think about mapping a motion to your ICP. And so really what I'm curious behind is each company you've worked at, I'm sure you've deployed different outbound strategies, that have worked to really connect with your buyers. And curious your thought process around, how you went about, ultimately finding your motion that seems to be working quite well for you, and how you did so in the context of this is our customer base and this is going to be unique and work well for them.
Yeah, I think it's, number one, sorry, I got kicked out of a room. Number one, you got to kind of like take the time to get to know the sales process. And so sitting on sales calls, talking to customers, reviewing losses. Why did we lose this deal? What happened? Getting context of like what's been tried, what hasn't, and not, by the way, like some of the best things that I've implemented have been things that were tried prior, that it was just either the wrong time or they weren't like, it wasn't given its due in terms of like the amount of effort and resources put behind it. So just because it's been tried before doesn't mean you can't try it again. But understanding the context, understanding the buyer, understanding the product, the real product, not what we think it is. It's perfect. It's, flawless. But like, okay, based on the product's strengths and weaknesses, does that fit to our ICP, and how do people want to buy it? Where are they when they experience the problem that we're solving? And what is that problem? Is it what we think it is? Is it what we're telling people it is? Or is it something different? Like being flexible. Like the analogy I've always used is like if I owned a tire shop, I would advertise in every pothole in the city because that's where my buyer is when they need me.
Yep.
And so how do you get as close to that moment as possible? And then building everything around that. It's this, the sports analogy being like, you hire a Hall of Fame coach to bring in their playbook. Well, if that playbook doesn't fit the team that you have, then there's like, it takes a couple years for them to build the team that they need for their playbook. You see it all the time. And by then you're fired. What the coaches that do well are the young coaches that come in and say, okay, I'm going to build a playbook around the strengths and weaknesses of the team that I have, not what I wish I had.
Yeah. That's good feedback. What, when you think back to maybe perhaps one of your previous roles, how did you sort of tailor your playbook for restaurant executives, for example, maybe at your last company?
Yeah. Interesting. I think that generally speaking, like there are a lot of companies where you'll come in and they say they think the product is one thing and they just kind of refuse to listen to anything that changes that belief. Mm-hmm. And so I think that like there is part of your job as a revenue executive coming into a business is to be a bit of a therapist and a bit of a change management consultant. Like it's my job to come in and tell you, while your baby may eventually become a beautiful child but it's fucking ugly right now. And it drools and it it's a 5-year-old that's still not potty trained. Like there are things missing. And that's nobody's fault, but that needs to influence the direction of how we're selling this thing, what we're promising. Yeah. Like we were, as an example at my last company, like we were, one of the biggest problems we had on like the account management side was bar owners, like, bar owners are notoriously rough on equipment, and they would call us at like Saturday night at like midnight saying one of my card readers is out, and then like would expect us to come in that moment and replace the card reader. And like at some point it's like, okay, but like let's diagnose the actual problem. They're upset. Fair. But wherever I am in the city, it's still going to take me half an hour to get there. So I'm there. There's actually, they could solve the problem faster than I could. And the problem is that we haven't equipped them to solve that problem. We don't give them extra card readers as backup. We don't teach them how to swap them out. We don't give them a plan to implement if the card reader goes out. And so in the moment, they're pissed off because it's something out of their control. Like if the keg runs out at midnight, they know how to switch the keg out. They'll go back, they'll switch out the keg. But they don't know how to change the card reader. And so how can we enable them to solve the problem in the moment, and then we can come out and fix it like, Monday or Sunday morning, or, in normal business hours, we can come and be like, all right, let's look at this faulty card reader, let's swap it out. Like, so how can we find out what the real problem is, not what they're saying the problem is? What's the problem behind the problem? Which is that it's outside of their control, it's a high stress environment, and they're upset. And then tailor a solution to solve that. Not, it's the fire prevention versus firefighting. You want to find out where you need to put smoke detectors in the business, not just run around like a, chicken with your head cut off with your fire extinguisher, squirting it at every fire that starts.
I feel like I've been there a few times. Okay, we'll hop into a few hot takes from you, and then we can wrap things up because I know we're running over a little bit. Let's see, where do we start? What is like a hill you're willing to die on in the world of go-to-market? Is it, cold calls? Is it meeting customers in person? What is kind of your Alex's flag that you carry?
Oh, there's so many. Cold calls will never die. Email is horse shit. Provide value before asking for value. AI will never change what I do, and it'll never change what AEs do.
Yep.
And LinkedIn influencers are bullshit. Those are there are a few hills.
What is one thing you're doing right now at Arda that no one else is doing that's crushing it for your playbook?
It's something that I've stolen from other industries, but nobody's doing it in this industry, so it's new and fresh. But dinners. We do like salon dinners, like networking events for people in our industry. We don't pitch our product at those. It's, hey, we want to bring people together to share ideas. We seed some topics that are tangentially related to what we do, but it works. People buy from people, and I think that they're having everybody come to dinner, let their guards down, talk about their problems, gives us a wedge to get into the to have conversations down the road. But again, it's the first thing I said: provide value before asking value. I'm going to give you something before I ever ask for you to give me something. And so and I'm always a resource. You want to pick my brain about what other companies are doing, I'll tell you, because I know at some point that'll come. We do it as humans, which is why it's always hilarious to me in sales. Is we provide value knowing that eventually it'll come back around to give us a benefit. And so just taking that and applying it to sales.
What's one best practice that the industry tells you, or that everyone says is a great best practice, that you think is absolute horseshit?
The massive bloat that has happened to sales tech stacks. There are so many point solutions that solve a niche bullshit problem that yes, it's faster, and it takes something off my plate that I don't like doing. But why? Eventually you get to a point where you have too many tools. I am less is more when it comes to tools, which is why we love Knock 2, to be fair. I know this is hashtag not an ad, but seriously, there are some that provide value and there's some that don't. I don't need something that will, what's a good idea? Fucking deal rooms. God, fuck off. I think, and it was funny, I had a friend come to me and say he wanted to build a new, better deal room. And he's like, because nobody uses them. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. The buyers are telling you this ain't working. And so again, deal rooms,
Has anyone ever asked you to join a deal room?
What?
Have you ever been invited to one?
100%, and I've never done it.
What was in the deal room?
Couldn't tell you. Wasn't in there. But again, that's a you problem. You have an organizational problem in getting me to be aligned on action items after a meeting. And so you've created this other thing that I need to log into to solve that problem, but you didn't listen to your customer. That's not, you're trying to sell me, buddy. Like, it's your job to make sure that we are clear on next steps, that we have that this information is accessible. And so I think that and it's such a niche product. Sorry to all those out there in my network that are selling deal rooms, but virtual deal rooms, but that's a perfect example. That was not that was a problem that didn't need a solution.
All right, final two questions. Best piece of advice you've ever been given when it relates to, startups, go to market?
There's two in the general life advice. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. Listen first, then speak. And along that route, assume positive intent. I think in every instance, don't assume that the other person, willingly tried to fuck you over or made that mistake. It's so much better to just listen, find out how, what information they used to make that decision and why, but assume that they did it with the best of intentions. I feel like the world needs more of that. But generally in sales leadership, it makes problem solving so much smoother.
Okay. And last one, a book, podcast, article, something you've consumed recently that was great in the world of sales, go to market.
Yeah, I'm the kind of guy who watches how it's made for hours on end. I'm always a nerd on figuring out why people do things, especially in, sales and sales leadership specifically. We manipulate people for a living. That's what we do. We're trying to convince people to do things to see the world the way that we see that. So I've always been I love reading the Freakonomics, the podcast, the books, so those are the, Barbarians at the Gate, things that talk about why people do the things that they do, are always interesting to me.
Awesome. Cool.
So I don't read a whole bunch of sales books. I read Sam's.
That's okay.
I read Sam Jacobs's book because we love Sam. And I've read a few others that I felt forced to read by my network, but other than that, I generally don't read sales books.
All good. All right, Alex Grace, thank you very much. People can find you on LinkedIn. Yep. And it was great chatting with you. Appreciate it, Alex.
Don't try to sell me anything, please.